Celtics Talk Podcast is presented by 24autogroup.com. 11 locations across New England.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Celtics Talk Podcast, playoff edition, Abigail.
Woohoo!
Are you ready?
I am not ready for this podcast.
Well, I
and the
appreciate
visual
you.
medium that is YouTube.
Oh, my
but I'm
goodness.
here for it. I am here for the playoffs.
I got to do my makeup, but Abby did not. So we are grinding through this playoff edition. How you feeling about the Atlanta Hawks?
I feel great about the Atlanta Hawks. I feel that the Celtics can get right, get sharp, and move on quickly, which is really all I'm going to ask out of the first round of the NBA playoffs.
So I was thinking about, like, how do I set up this series? And I need a Hawks expert to tell me, like, what this team can do and how they can make this a series. And then I thought about it. I was like, most of the hockey people I reached out to were like, yeah, I don't know.
I don't know what they could do.
Even the people that cover this team on a daily basis are like, it's going to be a little difficult. So I put it on you because I keep coming back to, I feel like it's more on the Celtics and how they play than necessarily anything that Atlanta can do. Are
you concerned that because of that, the Celtics, which we have seen throughout the season, will have a tendency to overlook the Hawks?
That is the only way that this can potentially become a series. And even then, I think the Celtics could sleepwalk and probably still win this thing in 5 or 6 games. And yet I do worry about that a little bit. But here's why it negates my fear.
Okay.
Marcus Smart. So when we were down in Atlanta in early March, Trae Young took his leg and right up into Marcus Smart's jump. And so I think Marcus Smart, if he needed any further motivation for this series, we'll see Trae Young on the other side and be quite ruffled up. Plus, Marcus hasn't had, I would say, Marcus Smart season. He's had stretches where he's been very good and directing the offense. But since the All-Star break and the ankle injury, I think he's been trying to find himself a little bit.
Yeah.
Missed the last 3 games because of the neck injury. I expect this to be a Marcus Smart series.
I think that is going to be good for this series if it plays out that way. Marcus just told us this afternoon that he is feeling as close to 100% as he has leading into the postseason. So that's good news. I also think it helps in the not overlooking the competition that Jaylen Brown and Malcolm Brogdon are playing in front of their hometown crowds. So there's a little extra juice there. The wild card, of course, is going to be Jason Tatum and just how seriously he takes this matchup.
Do you think there's a chance that Jason doesn't take it seriously?
Not that he's saying all the right things. We just spoke to him moments ago, and I believe I know that he. But
he's not the type of guy. He's never the guy who comes out and is like, yeah, here we go, like playoffs. He's just always, we're going to go out there and do our thing.
No, but to your point, Marcus, when we talked to him today, there was a definite note of animosity, anger. I don't know how to phrase it, but he was serious about this. He's not going into this. He's not limping into this series, literally. But Jason, I feel like, he's just so good. Yeah. And he knows that. And he knows that this team is so good. And so you look across and you see the Hawks. It was going to be the Heat, who almost beat you in the Eastern Conference Finals. Have Jimmy Butler, who gives you trouble all the time. Have Bam Adebayo, who is in competition with you for All-Stars every single year. And then they also obviously have Kyle Lowry. So I do think there is a bit of a letdown from that perspective when you look at the competition and just on paper.
Yeah, for sure. And yet I think they get out there and they realize they're just a superior team and they will have fun with it. I think
Does the Quinn Snyder thing do anything
and I like
for you?
Quinn Snyder. I actually think he's like a really good coach, but he's coached this team for 20 games. Like, he barely has the pulse of this team. They
still have the same assistants. Yeah. It's basically the same staff.
I don't know. I guess I can't sit here and say that a coaching change on the fly can't work out because I'm looking at a team that just did it, but they at least had the benefit of 82 games.
Yeah.
And yet, I don't think, Quinn Snyder can be the best coach in the world. Who the hell is defending anybody on this team? Like Trae Young, the Celtics know they can exploit that matchup. And I think there's a series where even if the Celtics had even if they're 85% engaged, 75% engaged, they're still going to score 125 points. And I don't see a roadmap for the Atlanta Hawks to be competitive.
The only thing I don't want to happen is what we saw in 2007-08.
Not the same team. Not the same.
I know. It's not the same.
And
that
team had people like Scal playing down to their competition, and so that team was weird because they dominated the regular season. They were like a buzzsaw. And then they got to the playoffs, and I don't know, it was just like they weren't ready. They were just like, they weren't ready for Atlanta to smack them in the face. I do not suspect Atlanta is going to smack.
I don't think
Boston
Miami
in the
was
face.
ready for Atlanta to smack them in the face in the play-in.
But also Miami is a bad team. And the people that were sitting here freaking out about the potential to have and the play of the big bad Heat were a little bit obnoxious. And so I love that they've now spun it and said, well, now the Hawks, are they more dangerous than the Heat? No, we're not playing this game.
You're not.
The Hawks will.
Many other people are.
The Hawks will score points.
I didn't realize their offense is top 5 in the NBA.
Yeah, I don't even think for the season, though. I think they were like 7th overall.
Top 10 for the season.
So
I know
number 2.
they're mediocre across the board. They are a 500 team. I understand that. Defensively,
It's
so much
back.
worse. Yeah.
If you look at the number of times they've won 4 games in a 7-game span, it's minimal. There was one stretch at the end of the year where they did it, and yet it's just they're one step forward, one step back, and so this is not a team built for the playoffs. And Trae Young is an exploitable defensive player. I do like some of their pieces. I think they actually Okongwu off the bench has been great. Bogdanovic, there's pieces that will allow them to hang.
What about?
They're just so far superior.
I think yes, and the health of Rob Williams is paramount, as it will be throughout this entire playoff run. But
you're not wrong.
They're going to need Rob in this series.
So Rob will be fine. And Rob is the other day when he was talking, he was saying how excited he was and anxious he was because he's been spry and he's been brought along slowly. Rob is the least of my concerns right now.
The least?
Until he lands awkwardly, then I'll lose my mind and cry. But until that happens, I'm fine with it. And I do think the Celtics have been the best defensive rebounding team in the league, even when Rob wasn't out there.
I know it just, and I know
that.
Right? I know it doesn't feel like that. The eye test does not tell me that the Celtics are the best defensive rebounding team in the league, and that it has been that way all year, not even just since Rob came back.
And the thing, the counter argument is the Heat were a good defensive rebounding team and built very similar to the Celtics, smaller guys, but active rebounders, and they got crushed on the glass. So could it happen? Of course, there might be a game in this series.
And it could happen for a game. Or,
Game 3 is the one that I'm worried about.
In Atlanta?
Right? In Atlanta, probably up 2-0, and all of a sudden they come out with energy, they're rebounding, Celtics are just sort of limping through it. Then it gets a little interesting, 2-1. You got to win Game 4, bring it back to Boston. But I can't imagine. I don't think we have to worry about Game 6 or anything like that. And I hate to be overconfident because I'm rarely overconfident in these situations, but the talent disparity is such that I just cannot get there with this series, and so my mind is already wandering.
I was not against a 6-game series when it was Miami, but yes, now that it would be heading back to Atlanta, which, by the way, I'm sorry for crushing all of your South Beach dreams. Forsberg loves him some Miami.
I do.
Okay, so if Rob Williams' health is your least concern,
my
what's your biggest concern? Even though I know you don't want to play this game.
No, I do love this game. My biggest concern isn't even just specific to this series. It's more just what failed the Celtics last year. Poor ball security, bench not producing. I think Brogdon shores that up. But Grant is probably my biggest question mark.
I know.
Is he going to be the Grant we got a year ago versus this year? Jason, Jalen. I mean, Jalen's hand. One of these J's. The hand, that would worry me because he wasn't using it today in practice. He was kind of using the left for everything. I think he's just got to trade cautiously. It looked like a little wrap on the index finger. Okay. So we'll see. But
what do you think is going on with Grant?
I've
kind of taken over your pod. I'm
sorry.
I know this is your pod.
This is better when I'm in this role because I
you rarely get to do it.
No, I know, and I'm terrible at setting people up on other questions because I just ramble off the top of my head. I think the problem was he was really good at the start of the year. He showed some new moves, some driving closeouts, and it worked early, and then it didn't work. And I think he's kind of conflicted about what he is. And I think he just has to get back to basics. So if all Grant does in this series is defend in all these playoffs, he'll be fine.
And rebound.
I don't even know rebound.
Box out.
He's got a box. He's got to keep bodies on people. But he's going to get switched in isolation on Trae at some point, right?
Yes.
What happens? In those situations in the past, he's been great. Whether it was Durant, Giannis, Bam, anybody he got switched on to, great. He's got to be great this year. Not only with this series, but with Joel Embiid in the next round and potentially Giannis in the round after that, and then maybe Kevin Durant in the final. So
I'm with you. Build up some confidence in this first round series for Grant. Because they are. We saw in the postseason last year, they're going to need him.
Do you have any big fears?
Against Atlanta?
No, in general.
In general.
Because this would be a quick podcast. We're going to just...
I think I said it. I think looking past this first round, and then I know that there are so many question marks about Joe, especially when you get to the later rounds, coaching against Doc Rivers and possibly Mike Budenholzer, who I'm not necessarily scared of.
Wow. Some Bud slander on this podcast. Go ahead.
Not feeling great about it.
But you know what? You were like Joe is a rookie coach. Actually,
yes, Joe, I feel like is the one unknown right now. But the way I'm looking at it, and I did ask Jason about this as well. You look at the success that the Celtics have had over the regular season. We have no reason to doubt Joe until that changes. Until something changes.
I will say, Joe was in here with me a few minutes ago as we recorded something that you'll probably be listening to soon. And I was surprised. He admitted, he's like, yeah, coaches are judged in the postseason, and I haven't been there, and it's fair to think that that's sort of like a weakness or an unknown. But he exudes this confidence that he's exuded all year, and so he's never looked overwhelmed by the moment, and I don't think it'll start now. So maybe it'll help that he can wade in against a team.
Also, yeah, some of that naivete could help. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, I'm particularly naive. So, all right, we're going to leave you with some more from today's accents.
Look no further than the award-winning 24 Auto Group. With over 2,600 vehicles in stock, the brands you love, backed by the savings and service you can count on. Visit today or shop online at 24autogroup.com.
Let's start. Take me all the way back. Like, what was the summer like as you find out you're going to be into this role? Like, where does your mind go, and what are you thinking as this experience starts?
Just execution, the task at hand. What are the most important steps that you have to take care of? Fortunately, I had the opportunity to be a head coach before, and so I kind of understood a platform and a procedural approach to, okay, here's what you do on day one, here's what your first 2 weeks should look like, here's what the next 30 days should look like. And so really just trying to have a procedural approach to, understanding what the plan of attack is, what are the most important things, and just how do you do that?
How long does it take for you to get comfortable? Like, are you comfortable immediately, again, having that experience, or, again, it's just such a different stage?
I think that you always go through. I was comfortable understanding that I had to go through it, and obviously I'm much more comfortable as a coach now than I was at the beginning. But in the beginning, not knowing what I didn't know, I was comfortable understanding, okay, I have to go through this. This is what it's going to look like. Here are the threats. Here are the challenges. Here are the opportunities. And so, I had a comfort level, one, because I had been here, two, because of the front office and Brad and the people that have always supported me, and three, the players, the relationship that I had with them. So it was much easier to step into that role because of, those guys.
Malcolm said it's still, for any coach taking over, to try and get that buy-in can be tough, and to try to win over guys. Like, it certainly must have helped that you had relationship with a lot of these guys, but how much are you conscious of, like, trying to get them to adapt to you, to buy into you? And is there a specific point where you maybe felt it more so than maybe?
I'm just grateful. I felt like from day one, I felt that they were going to give me a chance. So I'm appreciative of that. I also don't take for granted how fragile an NBA locker room is, how fragile a head coach-player relationship is, and how fragile a head coach locker room relationship is. There's a fragility there, and you have to be able to manage that. And so I understood that challenge. And so I was grateful to them that from day one I felt the opportunity. And I felt moments of testing. Okay, here's a test, here's an opportunity. But I felt a lot of moments of I have your back. And so I'm just grateful to that. And like I said, it's easy when you have a locker room like we do.
At any point have you been able to sort of take it all in, or does it just keep coming at you so fast? Do you ever get a chance to just appreciate? I
would say the last month, once things settled down.
Yeah.
Once once first place was out of reach, once the All-Star thing was over, once we were kind of settled into the 2 seed, once everything kind of settled down over the last month, I've been able to kind of take a small step back and kind of take it all in, on and off the court, right? What we've accomplished as a team thus far is good. It's not great. It's not over yet, but, we did accomplish something. What it's done for my wife, what it's done for my kids, what it's done for our family. So, it really slowed down here in the last couple of weeks, and I felt like I've been able to kind of just build an awareness and appreciation and, a deeper sense of gratitude towards it.
What has that journey been like with your family? I just can't imagine all of a sudden, everybody knows who you are now. What is that like for them?
It didn't change for me as much as it changed for my wife and kids. I felt like it changed more for them, and so really grateful at how they've navigated, because they took it on a lot. They didn't necessarily ask for all this, but they've been there and they've taken it on. And my wife has done a great job of just, rolling with the punches, and whatever comes on her plate, she just takes care of. And my kids have been very understanding. So I'm really grateful to them that I'm able to kind of do what I do without looking over my shoulder, because I know they're all in, I know their sacrifice, and I know they're strong to handle it. So I'm grateful for that.
One thing that I feel like has come through over the course of the year is you're just super competitive. Where did that start? Like, where was that ingrained in you? What, have you always been that way through?
I think just my family, the way my mom and dad kind of, raised me. The environment I grew up in was a competitive environment.
Were like board games? Are you like, is it cutthroat?
No, it's an unhealthy approach to life. It's not. I'm not here bragging about it. It's not good.
But like throughout your childhood, like did you have siblings? Like, was it as cutthroat with them? And
yeah, I was the older one, so I never really took it out on them. It was more with my dad. Him and he just brought it out of me, like just the competitive nature of when you do something. The number one goal should be trying to do your best. He had a process approach to it, but at the same time, it was like, you just can't get outworked. You have to put yourself in position to try and win at anything.
How hard is losing?
I've gotten better at it, to understanding, especially in the NBA, because sometimes it's out of your control. But here's the thing I love winning. I understand losing. I know you have to go through it. I know it's important. I know you learn from it. I know it makes you better. I try to put myself in positions to lose on purpose, and so that I can learn, whether it's my relationship with cold, my relationship with martial arts, like, those things, you have to lose in order to win. And so it doesn't mean I have to like it, but I understand it. It's important. And you have to be open-minded to it, because it's going to help you grow and get to where you want to get to.
How do you feel going into your first postseason as a head coach?
Because of the experience that I've had, because of the coaches that I worked for, because of the team that I have, I feel good. I understand it's not going to be easy, regardless of how good of a coach you think you are. It's the playoffs. It's intense, and you're going to be put in situations. And so we're going to heavily rely on those experiences and the players, and then the instincts. And at this point, like you said, because it's slowed down, I've been able to really reflect on the season. When we talk about losing, it's good that I was able to go through some of the challenging times that we had, losing 3 in a row, the Brooklyn, New York, Cleveland. Like, losing those 3 games in a row made me a better coach now that I'm on the outside of that, losing the overtime games, being able to study those close games, when you're in the meat of it, you're pissed off, but a month later, you're like, okay, that's what we needed. And so, this week, I've been able to draw from those experiences, those emotions, those opportunities of the losing, where it's like, okay, how can we assess these? And, how can we grow from this as a coach? How can we grow from this as a team? And how can we be ready in these situations again? So just thankful for those small opportunities of adversity that we've had throughout the year.
So I've heard Jason reference a couple times about being at dinner with you. I think when he found out he was an all-star. What are those dinners like when you're talking to your player? Like, what do you talk about? Do you talk about basketball? I mean, I guess naturally you have to at some point, but what are they like?
I try not to talk about basketball. Yeah. Especially for these guys. Like, again, I'm grateful for the relationship I have with them, but I try to focus on just who they are as people. I try to focus on the connection of what makes them a great player is usually because of the type of person that they are. And then just kind of what in their life is going on. Like, these guys are complex. They have passions. And, I really want to be there for them and help them with that. What did he tell you about dinner?
No, he's just mentioned it a couple times offhand, and then I did some poking, and I heard there's how frequently are these dinners? You don't have to give me all the info, but
no, I just think it's an opportunity to. I really try to focus on who they are as people and the positive impact that they're having on people around them, and just building an awareness to their environment is so important.
It's important, right? Like relationships, if you have to, the part of earning the guy's trust.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be able to connect with them on a different level, and you have to be able to be like, hey, listen, like it's easier for me because I'm like, hey, I'm going through the same thing you're going through. Like, we're all going through scrutiny, we're all going through adversity, but we're also succeeding. And so, how do we navigate that? Where in our life can we pull from that's going to help us? And so just kind of, having well-rounded conversations.
What was the somersault in Miami? Didn't you do you did something in the locker? I wasn't there for that one, so I'm going off. Is that part of the competitiveness with Smart?
Nah, it's just it's a way to build a connection. Me and Smart, we have our hobbies. We're very similar in our approach to kind of life, our approach to competitiveness, and our love of the arts. And it was just a way to grab his attention, build a connection with him, let him know, hey, just because I coach doesn't mean I'm any different than you. And I think that's important. Goal of mine with these guys is to break down that barrier of the head coach. We get it. I know I'm the coach, you're the player, but it doesn't have to be any type of way. What there has to be is a connection, a relationship, a level of respect. But at the same time, we have to have an alignment as to what we're trying to accomplish. And your life is just as important as mine. And what we're trying to accomplish is something together. And how do we do that?
I have to ask you about the Hawks. What as you start the game plan for them, what jumps out and what is most important for you guys in this series?
I think the most important thing is we have to maintain a level of physicality. We have to be proactive. We have to be aggressive. And then we just have to understand our opponent and our environment. We understand Trae Young, Murray, they're a talented team that has the ability to go on loud runs, and they have the ability to score fast. And they're really taking on the identity of their coach lately with their transition, their offensive execution, their offensive rebounding percentage. But we also have to understand what we can do really well. And so I think it's a matter of staying well balanced. I think it's a matter of staying poised and having a physical approach to the series.